guys, welcome to the Matt and Kendall Hagee podcast. You know, the purpose of this podcast is to make a difference in your everyday life. At least that's what we hope it does. And I know for me, one of the things that makes a difference in my everyday life are great resources. It doesn't matter if it's a book or if it's a podcast like this one, if it's a blog or something that I catch off the internet. And one of those resources is Dr. John Maxwell. He is obviously known across the planet for his information and his mentorship on the topic of leadership. But recently, Kendall and I were able to attend a lunch where Dr. John Maxwell got up to address a room full of leaders, and what he had to say was absolutely impactful. But before we get to some of that information, Kendall's got some great feedback from some of you, our listeners.
Yeah, some of the reviews. We have enjoyed reading some of these reviews. Well, all of the reviews. One that we got was this podcast really gives practical information for everyday life to improve our relationship with God. And that is making an everyday difference.
Who made that comment?
This is from, it's by I Am Maskell. Did I say that right? Or that's like the, hey, that may be, so these are by like their names. This might be just from like their Instagram.
Oh, okay.
Code word. But so this is.
It's their tag, I guess.
It's their tag. Another one is I've listened. This is from Sunflower 1556.
All right.
I've listened to all podcasts so far. Thank you so much for listening. And I love them. They're also short and sweet. That is exactly Matt and I's goal is short and sweet.
Listen, when you've got 4 kids, you can't do anything for very long.
You got to get what you're going to say, and you got to get it done in 15 minutes or less, right? Or the conversation is moving. One of the other ones is from Rod's Outdoors. So I'm going to say that this is from a man responding.
Well, Rod, if you're looking to sponsor us, I like all things outdoors.
We love outdoors.
Yeah, my sons love to fish.
Great podcast, y'all. You asked about future topics. What about some motivation and inspiration ideals, and maybe include some of the other podcasts and books that y'all feed on? Well, you know, you're talking about other books or podcasts that we feed on. One of them is from Dr. John Maxwell. Matt and I both listen to his podcasts. We also have read his books on leadership. One of the ones that I'm reading right now is his latest release, which is Leader Shift. And he is a great resource.
Not only is he a great resource, but Rod, this podcast is exactly what you're looking for because it's filled with motivation and inspiration. And Dr. John Maxwell, as I was mentioning, he shared in this luncheon 3 things that he considered to be everything. They are 3 everything statements. And I assure you, if you take these 3 simple statements and you really give them the opportunity to sink in, they can change everything in your life. Take a listen to what Dr. John Maxwell has to say.
The first statement I want to make about leadership is that everything rises and falls on leadership. Always has, always will. When Israel had a good king, Israel prospered. When Israel had a bad king, it didn't do so well. It's true in government, it's true in education, it's true in business, it's true in religion. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And for 50 years, I've been speaking, teaching, learning, writing on this incredible subject. Because in my middle 20s, when I came to the conclusion that everything rises and falls on leadership, I thought, what better thing can I do than to help people learn how to lead? In my book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, one of the laws is called the law of the lid, L-I-D. And the law of the lid just basically says how well you lead determines how well you succeed. And if I could do a visual today that would kind of help us remember that again, since you're not able to take notes, I would like for you to take a moment and just look up here, and I'm going to say that this hand right here is my leadership lid. This represents how well John Maxwell leads. From a 1 to a 10, let's say I'm an average leader. I'm a 5, okay? I'm an average leader. Now, if this is my leadership lid, average, 1 to a 10, it's a 5, then what I know about my organization, my business, my team, Whatever I lead, here's what I know. If my leadership lid is a 5, that my business will be a 4. And it cannot go any higher. Because you see, in the history of mankind, a business has never outgrown and gone better than its leadership. A government has never gone better than its leadership. You see, your leadership lid, whatever it is, whatever that number is, whatever you lead will be right under that lid and never go higher than what that lid is. That's why when people try to improve themselves by maybe changing their destination or changing their company or their organization, it doesn't really matter. If I'm a 5 as a leader, what I will lead will be a 4, 3, 2, or 1. I'll never lead a 6, 7, 8, or 9, and I'll never attract an 8 or a 9 to me. If I'm an average leader, if I'm a 5, in the history of mankind, a 9 has never woken up in the morning and said, I'd like to follow a 5. Everything rises and falls. Always has, always will. History just tells that. Now, when I do leadership, people raise their hand in Q&A. They ask a question. They ask this question all the time. They'll say, John, are leaders born? Whenever they ask me, are leaders born, I always give them the same answer. Of course they are. Think about that question. I've never met an unborn leader. In fact, I don't particularly want to either. Thank you very much. Now, what they're really asking is not are leaders born. What they're really asking is, are there some people when they're born, they have natural leadership gifts, so they go to the front of the line, and there are some people when they're born, they don't have those gifts, so they go to the back of the line. That's what they're really asking. And we can be born with leadership gifts, just like somebody could be born with the gift of music. But what is really beautiful is you can learn how to lead. You can develop your leadership. You can lift your leadership lid. That's a fact. I know that for a fact because I have the largest leadership training organization in the world. We've trained 6 million leaders in every country of the world, and we understand how to develop and train leaders. In fact, even while you're having lunch, just look at your neighbor and say to them, even you can learn how to lead. Go ahead and tell them that, would you? Even you, huh? That was kind of fun, wasn't it? In fact, some of you not only were saying even you can learn to lead, I could tell that some of you are beginning to help them out a little bit. But everything rises and falls on leadership. So let's go back to the visual of the lid for a moment. If as a leader, I'm a 5, my organization is a 4. But watch my hand for a moment. It's possible for me to lift my leadership lid. And I can go from a 5 to a 6. To a 7, maybe an 8. Now, the moment that I lift my leadership lid, what do I do for my organization? I give it the potential to grow from a 4 to a 5 to a 6 to a 7. You see, when I speak to corporations and companies and I talk to them about leadership, they say, well, how do we grow our company? It's very simple. You grow your leadership. The more leaders you have, the better leaders that you have, the greater potential you have to really develop yourself and your people. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And I want to stop here and call a timeout before I go to the second everything and say that it was privileged so much this morning to be in the sessions and listen to all of the speakers. I thought they all did an outstanding job. But I couldn't help as I watched them speak, and I saw the contagiousness of the crowd and the passion and the vision. I couldn't help but think to myself that there's no one that represents the law of the lid any better than my good friend, John Hagee. Nobody represents. I mean, I could have just put his picture up here on the wall and we could all gone to our next event. Because here's a man who took a dream and a vision and a passion and a calling with just a few people. Remember this, mass movements don't begin with a mass. Mass movements begin with a few. In fact, it's better to have a few with great passion than many without it. And John is a great example, and him and his wife Diane, beautiful people, are great examples that everything rises and falls on leadership. And when you think of where this organization is today, It didn't get here by accident. It didn't just, quote, one day happen. It was birthed by a leader who had a passion and was contagious with his vision that caught on to the people in this room. And today you have a visual example that everything rises and falls on leadership. Thank you, my friend John. Thank you, Diana, for that great, just your example. You modeled it for us. You modeled it for us in such an incredible way. So let me give you the second everything. Number one, everything rises and falls on leadership. You've got that one. The second one, I would like to give you a visual also, because as I'm sitting here knowing that I'm competing with lunch, I thought, I've got to make this stuff stick. You understand? It's got to stick. It's just I'm going to have to connect in every way I possibly can. And so I'm going to give you another visual. And if you'll just take a moment and look at this is going to introduce my second statement on everything. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Everything. Everything worthwhile is uphill. You have nothing in your life that is valuable to you, that is precious to you, that's not uphill. This is where your dreams are. This is where your vision is. These are your hopes. If you build a great business, it was uphill all the way. If you've got a great relationship, it was uphill all the way. Everything worthwhile is uphill. You have never heard anyone lecture that was successful on accidental accomplishments. I wrote a book a few years ago called Intentional Living. I love that book. You see, most people, they don't lead their life. They accept their life. If you ever interview somebody that's highly successful and ask them, how did you get to the top of the mountain? You never interviewed anybody successful and asked them how they got to the top of the mountain, and they looked at you with great surprise and said, oh my gosh, oh my. I had no idea I was up here. I have no clue how I got here. Honest to God, I just woke up and here I am. You're not on the path to success if that's what you think. You're on drugs. You see, everything in life. When I listen to the speakers today talk about Israel, I thought it's always been a struggle. It's never been easy. It's never been quick. It's never been fast. It's never been simple. Everything worthwhile is uphill. That's why leadership is so incredibly needed in society. Because people do not automatically want to go uphill. You see, if you really want to see the challenge visually, here's the challenge. I've got another visual for you. I'm so sorry, I keep interrupting your dinner. But I've got another visual for you. Everything worthwhile is uphill, but here's the problem. And I'm not an old man losing my balance here. Everything is worthwhile is uphill. Watch this. We have uphill hopes, but downhill habits. I have the largest coaching company in the world, 26,000 coaches, 162 countries of the world. And our whole mission is just to change people's habits so they can go uphill. Because can I tell you what an impossibility is? It's an impossibility to keep old habits that are hurtful and have an incredible uphill, helpful life. And again, that's the challenge of leadership. Leadership is always helping people to do things that they don't normally want to do. You see, a great leader is great because he or she takes something that is going downhill, stops the slide, and turns it around and gets it going back uphill. I call that a U-turn leader. A U-turn leader is a person that takes something going down, stops the down, turns it around, and gets it going back up. And the greatest test of a leader is the ability to do that. Why? Because everything worthwhile everything in your life, everything in my life, it's all uphill. So we've talked about two everythings. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Let me give you the third everything. The third everything is everything tomorrow will come faster to you than what today brings. Everything tomorrow will come with increasing speed compared to today. Every once in a while I run into somebody and they'll say, I'm just waiting for things to slow down so I can make a decision. And I say, you're going to die first. It's not going to slow down. There's no intention to have it slow down with social media and the things that they are, whether it's in business or government, whatever it is, decisions need to be made quicker. You see, if you would go into a bookstore in the 1980s, you wouldn't even see a leadership book. There were none. None. There were management books. You would go into a bookstore, and if you wanted to get your business doing well, you would buy a Peter Drucker management book. Peter Drucker was a mentor of mine. You see, we read management books in the 80s because things were at such a reasonable pace you could manage them. But in the 1990s, all of a sudden, the management books started coming off the shelf, and the leadership books started going on the shelf because the pace was increasing to the place that you had to get ahead of the game, not just be in the game. And so we went to leadership. By 2005, that started to shift more, and we started talking about leadership teams, understanding that not only were things happening so quickly, but things were so diverse in what was happening that you had to have different kind of people at the table so that you could have different perspectives, so that you could have a much more complementary, rounded leadership game. And I'm here to tell you there's another shift coming now. It's happening within the last 12 months. But trust me, it's happened. And that is, we are now going into another phase, which I call the leader shift phase. And the leadership phase just simply says that if you're going to be a great leader, you have to be able to adjust and be very agile very quickly. I was getting ready to speak to a company recently, and so we were on a pre-call, and they said that their theme when I came to speak was going to be fast forward. And they asked me, they said, what do you think about the theme fast forward? I said, well, only 2 words, so let me just tell you what I think each word means. I said, fast, when I think of fast, all it means to me is that fast is going to be faster than it's ever been in the future. It's never going to be slower. So fast is faster, and forward is shorter. You see, as you look into the future, everything's getting condensed. Let me explain. When I started off as a young leader, literally, you could have a 10-year plan for your organization. It was called a long-range plan, and you could have a 10-year plan for it. And a medium-range plan was 5 years, and a short-range plan was 2 years. There's no such thing as a 10-range plan, 10-year. There's no such thing as a 5-year. In fact, a 2-year, which used to be a short-range plan, is now a ridiculously, are you kidding me, long-range plan. You see, fast is getting faster and forward is getting shorter. And because that's a fact, because fast is faster and forward is shorter, you have to learn how to leader shift and adjust and be agile very quickly. So let me just give you one thought on leader shifting. We live in a culture today where you have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that cycle never stops. You have to continually be learning, but at the same time you're learning, things are moving so quickly, you've got to unlearn what you've learned and relearn something different. In fact, the Harvard Business Review 3 months ago came out and said that the average shelf life of a bachelor's degree from college now is 5 years. It's 5 years. If you've got a bachelor's degree 5 years later, 80% of what you learned in college is no longer working. Short shelf life. Are you with me? So what do? You've got to develop a way. How do we learn and unlearn and relearn? I thought about this, and I thought I would just give you something kind of very practical, substantial that you could kind of get your hands on today. In my coaching company, we've been highly successful. We're only 7.5 years old. We're now bringing in 5,000 to 7,000 coaches every year around the world. And as we bring in these coaches and train them and develop them, we have what we call a cycle of success that will work in your life, it'll work in your company, it'll work on your team, it'll work in your business. Just trust me, this just really works, okay? So here's how the cycle of success works. Remember, we're thinking learn, unlearn, relearn. Here's the cycle of success. And by the way, it's a cycle. Catch this word, it's a cycle, which means you continually repeat this cycle. It's not a journey. When you take a journey, you pass something and never come back. This isn't a journey, it's a cycle. But this is how you become agile and adjustable and how you become flexible to meet the culture as it is. Here we go. The cycle of success is test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. 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 Did I say test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter? This cycle never continues. Let's start at the top, test. We're always testing. We test every day. We are continually doing things we've never done before. And as you test, the more you test, the more you fail. Because you're in virgin territory, and so therefore you find out that you didn't know everything, and you discovered something you didn't know, and you make mistakes. And so testing and failure go very close together. That's why we call it, by the way, trial and error. We don't call it trial and succeed. It's trial and error. Why? Because the value of testing is to fail. And the value of failure is to learn. I wrote a book one time called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. The whole value of failure is learning. And so I run into people all the time and they'll say, oh my gosh, I had this failure, and they talk to me about the failure. Okay, I listen to it. But as soon as they're done with the failure, there's only really one question I've got to ask. It has nothing to do with the failure. It has everything to do with, did you learn? What did you learn? What did you learn from that failure? Because the only way to make failure your friend is to learn from it. Because you see, when people fail, they either leave it or they learn from it. And if you leave it, you repeat it again. If you learn from it, it begins to change your life. So you test and fail. Now, what do you do after the failure? You have this incredible learning experience. But what is the value of learning? The value of learning is not knowledge. The value of learning is improvement. The only reason you want to learn is to improve your life. You don't want to learn just to know something. If you want to just know something, you don't have to learn at all. Just ask Siri. She'll tell you. I mean, I'm not impressed with knowledge. Oh, well, I know this. Well, shoot, I've got Siri. I know all. What else do you want me to know? I can find it in a moment. You see, knowledge is not what you're going for in learning. It's improvement. So sometimes, to use another visual, we admire the person who seems to be always getting back up. And so it's this person right here, they get knocked down, they get back up, and we just admire that. It's got the American spirit, wow, I just love this. They just keep getting back up, and they don't stay down, and they're never down. They're either up or getting up, and they're just so incredibly tenacious. And I just admire a person that just keeps getting back up. And let me tell you something, this is not a picture of a tenacious person. This is a picture of a stupid person. If you get knocked down that many times, why don't you stay down a while? Stay one down and figure it out. And don't get back up until you improve. Which, after you improve, guess what you get to do? Re-enter. And why do you re-enter? So you can test some more. So you can fail some more. So you can learn some more. So you can improve some more. So you can re-enter some more. My time is up. You're the most incredible crowd I ever spoke to that fed their face the entire time. God bless you, God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Now, Kendall,
I'm thinking about the cycle that he kept on having us repeat. Test, fail, learn, improve, and re-enter. How many times, that just programmed into my brain how everything that we do on a daily basis is a test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter.
Well, and the
cycle.
The thing that I love about that cycle is obviously you're testing out an idea. You have to be willing to risk failure. Not everything's going to work the first time.
No.
And maybe it could work better, and you need to make some improvements. So you have to be willing to risk failure, and then you learn from the experience, and then you improve what it is that you're doing. You make your adjustments, and then you try it again.
Yeah.
And
it was really good that he said when you're down, maybe you should stay down for a little bit.
Well, he was talking about people that are considered persistent, and how they just keep trying, and they keep trying, and they keep trying, and they keep trying. But, if you try too many times and get the same result, maybe you should either try something else or just stop.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really appreciated about that cycle analogy is you were talking about test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. Nowhere does the cycle say quit.
No.
And that's one of the things that I think people really need to understand and absorb today is that the only time that you truly fail in life is when you stop trying.
That's right.
It's when you stop trying. And it doesn't matter. It could be in business. It could be in marriage. It could be in your physical or financial goals. The moment that you decide to give up is the moment that nothing good is going to happen. But as long as you're willing to keep testing, which is effort, and you're willing to keep learning from your experiences, which is the failure and the learn, and then, you improve it, you make the adjustments, and you try again, you've got the opportunity to accomplish great things. And, Dr. Maxwell, I hope you're listening.
We're growing.
I hope you're listening to this podcast. If you are, you can write us a review.
Thank you so much for sitting by us at the summit.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with this generation. And I pray that this podcast, for all of you who got to listen to it, makes an everyday difference in your life today.
Yes, we want you to go and listen to John Maxwell's podcast. Also subscribe and tell others about the Matt and Kendall Hagee podcast. And leave us more comments, reviews. Tell us what you think, what other topics or other people you want to hear from. Bye, guys.
And Rod from Rod's Outdoors. I don't even know if your name's Rod.
I know, just me. Hey, maybe that's his store name, Rod's
Outdoors. Could
Outdoors.
be, but Rod's Outdoors. I hope that this was inspiring and motivating to you today. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye, guys.